It's a busy one. How you doing, bud? Yeah.
Your receipt for tax purposes later.
Oh, yeah. What's your name, bud?
Mike.
Nice to meet you, Mike. I'm Christian.
I am here on the Riverside bus with our Mayor, Christian Provenzano. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for asking me. This was a great idea you had, and I think it's awesome.
And I have your undivided attention because we can't go anywhere for an hour until we're back at the terminal.
That's a pretty dangerous thing for a politician to agree to, right?
Yes.
You've got me for an hour, and you've got a camera, and I can't actually get
and
off.
you can't get off the bus.
No.
So let's get started.
Sure.
So since we're on the bus, obviously we want to talk about transit.
Yep.
First of all, do you think that we have an easy-to-use and effective transit system here in Sault Ste. Marie?
I've been told that we don't by the users of the system. I want to kind of make sure I recognize and acknowledge I think we have great bus drivers. So I think the staff is great. I think our bus drivers are great. And I think our management at Sault Transit is really strong. So, but I've been told by the users of the system that it's not convenient, that they have to budget significant amounts of time to get around the city, and that to make connections, they often might have to come from the west back downtown, then back out to the west, or from the east back downtown and back out to the east. So there certainly are challenges we have to address, absolutely.
Are there any plans in place to address the specific things that you're talking about that people are speaking out about?
Well, we are spending money right now on doing a route optimization study. So what we're doing is we're looking at all of our routes, and we're figuring out if there's ways that we can do our routes to make the routes more convenient and more efficient for the users of the routes. And that might require other stops in the city where you don't have to come all the way downtown to get off. Maybe there are other transfer points. So we are working on that. We're looking at that. I think you're aware that last year I did a lot of consultation and I did a lot of listening to the community. And whether I was talking to students or newcomers or the education institutions, no matter who we were talking to, we heard about transit and the importance of transit. And it really kind of hit home to me that it's a social equity issue. It's an issue about inclusion. We have to make the city livable, and we have to make it convenient for people to get around the city. A lot of people can't afford a car. And if you can't afford a car, it shouldn't take you an hour and a half to get to an appointment.
Mm-hmm. So how are we going to include those people? What are some things that you think Sault Ste. Marie needs to have in place to be able to implement improvement?
If improving the transit system is going to require additional resources from council, I would be really encouraging council to make those investments. And I know that the staff is looking at how to bring Sunday service back to what it was.
If we're going to talk about investment and the city investing in transit, what do you have to say to people who were pretty disappointed when our city wasn't able to come up with the $3 million to match the $3 million offered by the Trudeau government?
Well, you know, I completely appreciate why that would be troublesome to people in the community, but money's tight right now, and you see at council we're having to make a lot of decisions to balance. There are places that we have to invest resources, and we have to pick our priorities, and I do think transit is becoming apparent as a priority, and we're right now going through a process where we're trying to kind of, as a whole community, settle on a number of things that we know we need to improve. And if out of that we have some consensus that these are the areas we need to invest, well, then we have to look at our spending, because the reality is, you know, the city does spend money in a bunch of different ways.
Can you see why people have been pretty passionate about the changes that have been made, like the Sunday service cuts, at the same time that we are going through a fare increase? Like, how do you explain to them that we do have to increase the fares, but the services are also being cut a bit? Yeah.
So, do I understand why people feel that way? Absolutely. It seems incongruous, right? It doesn't. One thing doesn't make sense to the other. The reality on the fares is we haven't taken a fare increase in a number of years. So we had a fairly low fare relative to a lot of the other communities. So the fare is part of recovering money so we can have a good transit system. And for years, we were not recovering near the cost of the system. And in transit, you don't. In transit, you never recover the total cost of the system, or we won't in Sault Ste. Marie. We'll always have to subsidize the system. And that's okay. But so everything, Jasmyn, is getting more expensive. Right? We have labor contracts. We have employees. The buses are getting more expensive. The gas is more expensive. Like, the fuel to run the buses is more expensive. So the cost of running the systems, all the systems, not just the transit system, is outpacing the community's ability to pay for it. And that's been a point that I've been trying to make very consistently. So why we have to focus on our spending, and if you have your spending right, and the taxes will follow. There are less people living here.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means there are less taxpayers. So what happens is our revenues go down. And when our revenues go down, like the cost to run things goes up, but the revenues goes down, you're amortizing, you're spreading the cost over a smaller number of people. And that's why it goes up. So like the service levels we have, we're fighting to keep those. And what we need to be doing is figuring out a way to improve service levels. But right now, with the way things have gone economically and with the demographics in our community, we're doing our best just to keep the service levels that we currently have. And we're making some tough decisions to keep the service levels we currently have. I understand why it doesn't make sense to people, and I understand why people would be bothered by it, but it's just the reality of the economics of the situation.